I'm talking now to Kathryn Brooks, and Kathryn's been volunteering with us at Athona the last few days, helping all sorts of things around the house. But you came to us pretty well directly from volunteering somewhere else, and I wondered if you'd tell us about what you've been doing.
That's right, yes. I was over in Greece on the island of Samos for 6 weeks, volunteering with a medical charity there that was providing primary care services, so GP type services to refugees. Within Samos, there's about 5,000 population of refugees currently. Very limited infrastructure for them in a camp that is designed for about 700. So services on the ground are quite limited, and hence there's lots of NGOs working with them. And I was involved in one of those.
And this is really quite a small island. I've not been to Samos.
That's right. It's a small but very beautiful island. It has a population normally of about 7,000. So if you add to that 5,000 refugees, the infrastructure is designed for 7,000. It's not designed for 12,000. That means that things like the hospital, there is just a small local hospital, is really quite stretched with those additional people. Even the normal residents would have to go to the mainland for the more sophisticated health services.
So the conditions in the camp, if there are so many people in one designed for 700, must be pretty grim.
Pretty grim, yeah. The sanitation is by no means adequate, which leads to all kinds of problems. There's rubbish strewn all around. There's rats and snakes and scorpions. Many of the families are living only in tents or makeshift tents at that. Long queues for food. So really a very difficult situation to live in.
What was your own role, Kathryn?
My role was to support the volunteers who were working with the charity. So that was a combination of one or two people involved in admin type work, but also a lot of doctors, mainly fairly junior doctors, but people who've given up their time to go out there, and nurses who were providing the care, and also doing some of the making the clinic run smoothly in order to allow the refugees to come and get services as swiftly and smoothly as possible, bearing in mind that there's quite a lot of tension currently with the locals, because the situation's gone on a very long time with the refugees, and of course everybody's feeling super anxious because of the coronavirus situation, which up until very recently had been fairly minimal on the island. Sadly, whilst I was there, they got the first COVID cases in the camp. Again, in a really crowded situation, that's going to spread really rapidly. But again, it led to increased tensions with the locals. The refugees must have picked it up from a local, because none of them have arrived within the last 14 days. But nonetheless, it just adds to the difficulty of providing services and living for the refugees.
And what are the prospects for those refugees? Do any of them know where they're going to end up or how they get there?
Historically, they have sometimes been trapped on the island for up to 2 years. Asylum interviews can take many months, if not considerably over a year. I was there in May last year as well for 6 weeks, that time working with the school, and on that occasion I met a number of children, and I certainly met one of those children, a little sort of 9-year-old boy who was still there this time. So people do get trapped really for quite some considerable time. Then they hope to get an open card to be able to go to Athens and onwards thereafter, but it's a long old wait.
How did you get involved with this kind of volunteering?
I'd volunteered and worked with refugees in the UK quite a bit. I did host some in my house at one point, and also was a home visitor, so visited other potential hosts with an organisation called Refugees for Home. Then when I was living in Birmingham, I volunteered in a place where food was distributed, non-clothing items, and where there were English classes for refugees. And then when I found that I was between jobs, I felt that I wanted to go and see an earlier part of the journey for those that might come to the UK and help out somewhere else. And of course, there's lots in the media about the Greek islands and the problems there, so I wanted to go and see what I could do out there, and applied through an organisation called Indigo, which is a not-for-profit that simply places volunteers in the Greek islands and in other places working with refugees.
Out of that experience, any particular reflection or most important thing that you feel was a learning for you?
Really hard to say. I don't know. I just find it astounding that Europe as a whole, with quite a large population and quite considerable wealth, can't do more to relieve the pressure on both the Greek islands, and I kind of get that the population there are a bit fed up, but also, you know, to provide an onward destination for refugees, most of whom just want somewhere safe to live, just want to get a job and just want to contribute to society. So I guess it just reinforces that again, and so I guess for me now, is there something more that I can do to try and help in any further way?
Mm-hmm. We've said it's a pretty grim conditions, but is there a moment or an image of something entirely positive while you were there that will stick with you?
I mean, Samos is a beautiful island, and in some ways there's a little bit of a sort of contrast, the beauty and the horror. But I guess the thing that really sticks with me is the various interactions with refugees, and the charity I was working with had a number of refugees acting for us as translators, and just chatting to them was delightful. And although clearly in many ways they're downhearted, they're also in many ways very, very upbeat and positive and still joyful and still laughing despite the fact that they're in this shocking situation. So I think probably the interactions with the guys that were there translating for us, and indeed those that came for treatment, who again were just very patient and very respectful and very grateful despite the fact that, you know, the situation is dire. So I think, again, as in many things in life, it's that interaction with another human being, and we are all the same, aren't we, fundamentally? So yeah, I think that's the thing that was really positive out of it.
Kathryn, thank you.
Pleasure.